Howdy peeps and welcome back. Today we are going to be, I use we in the royal sense. Anyway, yes, we're going to be carrying on with Little Red Riding Hood, not so little, the Nuts Planet figure. If I remove the box out of the way, as I said in the first part, when I was base painting, let's move the camera down a little, a bit of zoomage so we can see better. I've use a pokey device. So I've got the second coat on the flesh and I've base painted the leathery bits as well. Same with the other arm and the little scabbard. Not done anything else. That's it. You see, round the back as well. So, what are we going to do today? Well, first of all, we're not going to be touching Red herself. We're going to be working on the cloak, which, as you probably say, it does actually look quite cool at the moment, and it's dark and it's kind of still slightly zenithal shaded red. But we'll be building up the contrasts and the variance in the tone of this. First of all, with a coat of, give it a quick shake, the Citadel shade Druchii Violet, which is basically a purple acrylic wash, and that will be airbrushed on. And we'll make sure we get this one into all the crevices everywhere. Then once that's dried, which may not be this episode, I'll be going over it with the more red shade of Carroburg Crimson. But I'll be spraying that from above so we keep the Druchii Violet in the shadows and the red will build up over the top. So, you know, again, just give us tonal variety and shading and all that good stuff. Then over the top it will probably just end up with a quick dry brush to pick out the highlights. So let's get going. First job, get rid of clean shiny cutting mat and pieces of black cardboard to reveal manky nasty cutting mat. And oh dear, this was a bad idea. Well, it would appear that since filming the first episode a few days ago, I forgot to clean out my airbrush. So we shall see how this goes. I will just pop a little bit of water in there, see if it actually sprays through or not. Bloody hell, that's a miracle. It does. Right, so we'll take advantage of that. And this is just the red paint that was used as the base for the hood and the cloak anyway, so if a little bit of it comes out with the wash, or the shade, sorry, then it's no big deal. So these Citadel paints do have annoying self-part closing lids. So the old cocktail stick jammed in the back to keep it at least slightly open. I'll be doing that an awful lot with these once I start actually painting, and if I'm using any Citadel paints. So we just add a few drops into the admittedly heavily manky airbrush. Doesn't take too much because it goes quite a long way. 7 or 8 drops. The newer shades are a little thinner on the pigment than the older style washes in the hex pots. I'll just turn the air pressure down a bit because we don't need primer levels of air pressure for spraying what is essentially an ink. And yes, I will probably end up with a purple hand at the end of this. So we just check on the paper that it is coming through. I'll do it this side so you can see. There we are. Shut up, compressor. No, I haven't got the same force of will. So I will just, so I'm only going to be spraying for a few seconds, we can turn that off. So and these shades do build up fast. You don't need to add a lot or even pull the airbrush needle back very far. I think you can probably see just how little action I'm actually giving the airbrush. So, and this isn't clean, so if the airbrush was clean this would be coming out even faster. So we're just shooting up, going as it were against the grain of the fur to make sure it mainly builds up in the shadow areas. Check we've still got some left. Yep, we are still coming out. And on the inside as well. And we leave that to dry. Airbrushing gob time. There we go. By the way, not the best way to use your airbrush by sticking it in your mouth, but hey ho. Better than licking the brush, and I do that as well, so I'll just put a bit of water in the airbrush just to make sure it doesn't clag solid. Having just realised I've forgotten to do Red Riding Hood's hood, but as that's not fur as such, we will leave that for now. If I need to put a little shade over that, it will be exactly the same method, although obviously I'll cover her face up and everything else so she doesn't get purple tint on her skin. Well, what's next? And can I zoom you in any more? I will do once I start brush painting. So I think it's time to add some variety to the leather. So on the lighter leather, don't worry, I won't be doing this entire thing with just Citadel shades. We'll need that one for the darker leather. I'm trying to look through my paint rack to find the right colour. Always the problem when you've got, oh no, where'd the flesh wash go? No, what the heck is it? Oh god. You'd be amazed the amount of random guff that is residing in my paint rack. There's another brown. I never understood why I ended up with two of the brown ones. I must have bought the wrong one at some point. Is that the green? I think it is. How hard can it be to find one particular colour wash? Is that it? Yay! Found it eventually. I was saying with these old style Citadel washes, yeah, don't bother trying to buy or find them, because these ones are probably 25 years old, getting on for. Got to be somewhere around that. This one does need a darn good shaking. I mean, you can see the amount of pigment that's built up in the bottom. Give it a little bit more. That'll do. Right. Yes, full of froth and foam. And I will zoom you in a little more here and try and remember to hold my hand roughly in the same place. That's about right for me. Now I switched over to a slightly smaller paintbrush. This is a size 0. So we're starting to get to the point where going over the edges just makes life harder. Just in much the same way as the base coats are applied, I'm just going to paint the wash all over. It will naturally want to pool in the recesses, but as this is actually a lighter wash, we don't necessarily want that. However, once we go back over with dry brushing, etc., we'll get the kind of colour we're looking for, I hope. And I will stress this point, when it comes to painting figures, as I've said before, I am slightly shade blind. Well, quite a bit shade blind. So a lot of it is trial and error. I'll paint something and go, yeah, that don't look good, or that don't look right. But I can't figure it out until I've actually done it. So aside from putting base colours on and then certain things that I know work, everything else is kind of an adventure in what's going to happen. Now, as I say, I'm no, as I've said in the previous episode, I'm no expert at all when it comes to figure painting. I enjoy it. That's the long and short of it. It makes a nice break from tanks or planes or cars or whatever. Just to wipe your brush over something, especially fantasy, because there's no real ties. You don't. Yeah, I know the whole "it's your model, you can do whatever you like with it" argument, and I do agree with that. But when it comes down to it, if you're going to build something and paint something military, you're going to go for at least either, if not the absolutely correct colours, as close to as you can kind of manage with what you got. Rather, but with sci-fi and fantasy, you can make it all up as you go. There's no rule. Obviously, if you're doing an orc, it's a better idea to paint his skin green than purple. But yeah, and yeah, so he just allows you to express yourself, use your own creativity or whatever random terminology there is. Oh dear. And the other thing with these, they seal up really well and they don't dry out. Are you listening, Games Workshop? Not that you actually want your paints to last forever. You want them to dry out and get spilt and go off and that kind of stuff, because then you sell more. And as kind of annoying as that is as a modeler, you've got to understand it from a sales standpoint. If, as I say, a pot of wash like that is going to last a damn long time. Unless you knock it over or You know? Same with the paints in these little pots. They don't necessarily, if you get a bit of paint around the lip, they don't seal at all, and then they dry out. So you then go and buy another pot of paint. That's it. It's the way of the world. It's all about making money in business. Now for the little dagger, where'd the box go? Oh yeah. I was just checking it wasn't an obsidian blade or something clever like that. It's just metal, so we can add some cool effects to it afterwards. If we want to make it look magical, we can give it a blue shade or tint or something over the top. But for now, I'll just paint it in. So this is just Vallejo Model Air steel colour. I do like to use the Model Air paints for figure painting because, well, one of the golden rules that people always say, you know, whether you're watching Vince Venturella, put my teeth in, Vince Venturella, or you know, even Duncan on Warhammer TV, or whoever it is, they always say thin your paint, thin your paint. Well, when you're using an airbrush ready paint, it's already thinned. And you might be able to hear my belly rumbling in the background. Anyone to think I was starving? Anyone who's seen the size of me will know I'm definitely not starving. But yeah, so I will be using a lot of Citadel products. And I'm by no means saying use Citadel, don't use other products. I'm using what I know, what I have, and what I trust. And yes, back to the pricing thing. Yes, Games Workshop are expensive for what you get. But it's pretty much always really good quality stuff. The paint itself, you can't complain about. It does exactly what you want it to, behaves impeccably, dries fast, thins really easily with just water. You don't have to add flow improver or anything like that. The models, yes, they are expensive. They do look damn cool. And of late, Games Workshop, with their new changes in management and whatever's going on there, are actually becoming a much nicer company to deal with. Just checking I am actually remotely in shot doing this. So I'm just adding a bit of paint to a sword blade, so that's not really the most technical of demanding things to watch. Let's just wash that brush out because the hilt is actually pretty small, so I'll switch to a smaller brush. And I'm not entirely sure where I picked it up from, but I do have a tendency to reach for really small brushes when I probably don't really need to. I mean, this is a 5-0. I probably don't need a 5-0 to paint a sword hilt in 75mm, but you know, I was always the same when I was playing Warhammer in 40,000. Everyone else would be using size 1s, size 2s, or size 0 would be their small brush. I'd be the one with starting out with a 0 and working down from there. Whether it makes any difference, I don't know. It's just the way I do it. So we'll pop that down to dry, and we'll look at. Oh, clean my brush. We've got a bit of a puddle of wash, so we'll just spread that out a little, just so we don't just end up with a big blob of the wash right in the same place. Just spread it out. There we go. We can see with the different tones already on the I say boots, I wouldn't really call them boots, boots and leggings or whatever they happen to be. I will come back when I'm more into the detail painting phase, and the straps I will paint a different shade. Obviously I'll paint the buckles in, the various buttons, all the other stuff. But for now, how are we doing on time? I think I might just add some brown wash to some of the other leather work. Show you this one. Again, give it a darn good shake, because some of these washes do tend to sit on my well, yeah, they're quarter of a century old, and they tend to sit on my paint rack for months on end without being touched, so they do tend to separate a bit. But soon come back, soon get a good usable wash out of them again. And this is just the darker brown. Which will go over the top part of the leggings, right up to the edge, but trying not to get any on the flesh. That is the, as I say, the tricky bit, is the flesh being much lighter than all the surrounding work. If you get any of the washes onto the flesh or the paints from the leather work or the hood, or well, the hood's not so bad because it's red, but if you get any of these sort of washes onto the skin, it's going to be take a bit of covering up, so it pays to be a little more careful. I am still just about in shot. Good. So we'll just, and a lot of this may well all get painted over again at a later date as I'm going through. I might decide I want something a different colour or a different shade. It's okay, it doesn't matter. It's just paint, you can soon cover it over. The absolute worst. Right now we're switching away from this and we're going into the smaller brush. So I don't want to be getting the brown wash all over the flesh. And now my hand decides to shake and I do get brown wash all over the flesh. Oh well, never mind. We can neaten that up later. The thing I'm doing with these washes, it's not so much to pick out the shadows or sunken detail or recessed detail. This is more about adding depth, richness, warmth, whatever you want to call it, to the figure. Leather's a real thing. It has, you know, if you've got leather boots or leather jacket or whatever, it's got depth, it's got character, it's got all that good stuff. It's not just leather brown. Now, here's where I really don't want to mess up. Well, it don't really matter because her bum's not visible behind the cloak, but I don't want to leave her looking like she's got a skid mark. I think that's all that done as well. So, let's wash that out. We're getting there on the time scale. Close that. Let's have a look, see. Yep, that's dried. The cloak, that is. So I can hold out, we can see we got a little extra shadow and shade in the colours. And on the inside, the other good trick you can do with these Games Workshop shades is the blending and fading, as I did on the wings for the Flying Hive Tyrant I did not long ago. That was just painted red, it's the same red, then given a coat of the Druchii Violet exactly the same. Or was it? No, it was a Carroburg Crimson first, and then I put the Druchii Violet over that and faded it in to give the wings, that effect. 5 minutes to do, really easy, rather than faffing about for hours and hours trying to wet blend it, and I suck at all that kind of stuff anyway, so there you go. Right, we'll leave her there for now. If you haven't learnt anything, I hope I've at least been some interesting or amusing background waffle, or something in the background in your cave as you're modelling. Enjoy your modelling, have fun, peace out, rock on, and bye bye.